Welcome back to another episode of Email Marketing Mastery. And today we're going to talk all about blacklists, what they are, how to identify them, and we'll touch on how you get on them and why you get on them and how you get off them. So let's just jump right into it. Let's get going. Right, so let's first look at the definition of a blacklist. Right, so a blacklist is a real-time list that identifies IP addresses or domains that are known to send spam. They're used by organizations like internet service providers or free mailbox providers and anti-spam vendors to prevent spam from coming into their systems. So there are three types of blacklists. There's public ones, then there are corporate ones, and then there are internal ones. And we'll discuss each one of these in a little bit more detail. Right, so the public blacklists are companies like Spamhaus, Spamcop, Invaluement, Barracuda. I'm sure you've heard some of these names before. Spamhaus is one of the biggest ones out there. Spamcop is very big as well. So let's dig into these a little bit. Right, so how do you check them? There's free ways to check them. There's a site called MultiRBL.valley.org that actually checks 337 different RBLs. Right, so RBL stands for real-time blacklist. And then there's also mxtoolbox.com, which is also a free tool that you can also use to check not as many as MultiRBL, but it does check all of the major ones. MX Toolbox does have a paid option where you can pay and they monitor a whole bunch of IPs and or a whole bunch of domains. And then there's a paid tool that I personally use a lot for a lot of my customers, and I really like this one, is one called Hetrix Tools. And Hetrix Tools is very configurable. There's a whole lot of different options where you can check down to every hour. You can check all of your IPs and all of your domains and identify blacklists that they may be on. Right, so this is a screenshot of MultiRBL in action, and all I did here is I looked at up an IP that I knew specifically was bad, and that had several blacklists. And as you can see there, they break it down for you, so there's different sections, and then there's the, within each, there's the not listed, there's blacklisted, brown listed, yellow, white, neutral, or failed. So failed just means that that particular blacklist couldn't be reached at the time that the check was done. Be aware with MultiRBL that if you use this tool, there is a limit on how many you can check in a certain specified number of, or amount of time. I'm not exactly sure what the limitation is, but if you check too many IPs or domains in a short amount of time, it's going to tell you that you're going too fast and it's going to stop you. So yeah, anyway, so there we go. You can see I highlighted the area there where it said blacklisted 8. So this specific IP address appears on 8 different blacklists. So let's scroll a bit down. So this is further down the page, and as you can see, I blurred out the I don't want to call them the innocent. They're definitely not innocent because they're on all of these different blacklists. So anyway, I grayed out or blurred out the identifying information here. But you can see here there's several that is listed on. There's Spam Grouper, and then there's several of the Spamhaus ones. It's on the SBL, it is on the Zen, it is on XBL. So a whole bunch of different blacklists that it's on. Now, Spamhaus uses several different ways to identify spam. They've got a whole bunch of spam traps out there. They monitor a bunch of different inboxes for messages coming in, and they've got a whole intelligence network that they use to figure out whether something is spam or not. And they've been doing it for a very long time, and they're really, really good at this. So if you get listed by Spamhaus, you definitely did something bad, and 9 times out of 10, it's bad list acquisition, and we've spoken about this before. All right, so moving on, this is on Spamhaus site directly. This is exactly the same IP address that I looked up in MultiRBL. In this case, I went onto Spamhaus's site directly, looked up the IP there, and they just give you some information there. I know it's you can't really make out the text in there, but it actually shows a whole bunch of messages, message ID, as well as the subject line of the messages that they've identified as spam, which is why it's listed on here. Right, let's move along on to corporate blacklists. Right, so some of these corporate blacklists, you can check the IPs on their site or the domains, but many of them, and I actually want to go as far as to say most of them, you have to scan your logs. And this is where things get difficult. When you're using a standard ESP, and I'm not hammering on any ESP here, but let's say you use something like an Aweber or a MailChimp or a GetResponse. The problem is you can't see the logs, right? So you don't know what's going on the back end. You'll get the message that an email address is bounced, but most of these ESPs don't give you the exact log message as for why they bounced. And I'll show you on the next screen why that's important. So here's an example, two examples from Cloudmark. So Cloudmark is a pretty big, well, it's most probably one of the biggest corporate spam filtering / blacklisting companies out there. So now I lost my train of thought there. So these guys, they've got their own spam trap network, all that kind of stuff. And if you do anything with B2B, so if you send B2B messages, this is what you're going to run into. You're going to run into Cloudmark, and there's a few other companies out there as well. Proofpoint is another one. If I remember correctly, very recently, either Cloudmark bought Proofpoint or Proofpoint bought Cloudmark. I can't remember which way around. So they are now one company. But I wanted to show you an example of what these messages look like, the actual log messages when there is a blacklisting at Cloudmark in this instance. Right, so there you can see your mail from, and I X'd out the IP, so you can see the exact IP. Your mail from IP address was rejected due to being listed by Cloudmark C, and it gives you a URL. And this is in the message, right? So you get this information or in the bounce message. The next one is even more detail, where again it tells you that junk mail is rejected. It lists the actual sending domain as well as the IP address. It says it's in an RBL on CSI Cloudmark, and then it gives you a URL that actually includes the IP address, right? So you can literally take that URL as is, fire it up in your browser. It brings up the Cloudmark website with your IP address already filled in, so you can fill in a request to be delisted off that blacklist. They're pretty good at delisting, but I mean, if you're sending spam, flat out spam, they're going to keep delisting, and eventually they're going to deny any delistings. Right. Moving along. Here is another example message from Symantec. Right. So in this instance, connection rejected by policy, and there's a policy number. Please visit, and it says MessageLabs.com, which is part of Symantec, for more details about this error message. So in this case, you have the opportunity to, you can log a support ticket with them, give them more information, and hopefully be able to get delisted. Right, so next up, we mentioned internal blacklists, right? So the mailbox providers, all of your big players, right? Your Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail, Outlook, AOL, all of these guys, they all have their own internal blacklists, which they don't publish outside. There's no tool that you can go check any of these, so there's no way for you to identify if your messages are being blocked by any of the big mailbox providers. Again, unless you are able to have a look at the actual log messages in the bounce log messages. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples. Right, so here's two from Gmail. Right, so the first one, we have an error code that starts with a 4, right, a 421 and then a 4.7.0. And it tells you here the exact message, and Google is really good at this with their messages in their bounce logs. Our system has detected that this message is suspicious due to the nature of the content and or the links within. To best protect our users from spam, this message has been blocked, and then it gives you a please visit and a URL. So this first message is Google firing a shot across your bow, telling you that their users are not happy with the messages that you are sending, right? There's stuff in there that are triggering filters on their end. This is really good to get this kind of message, because this is a soft bounce. This is not a hard bounce. This is Google telling you there's a problem, go and fix it. If you don't go and fix it, then you're going to get the next message, right? So the next message is a 550, which is a hard bounce, gives you an IP address, and it says, our system has detected an unusual rate of unsolicited mail originating from your IP address. To protect our users from spam, mail sent from your IP has been blocked. That's it. It's dead. You can no longer send messages to Gmail from that IP address. Now, all is not lost. There are ways that you can recover. It's a lengthy process, but you definitely can recover. But you're going to have to do a lot of house cleaning, right? Your lists, the emails that you're sending, etc. Right, let's look at another one. So Yahoo. So Yahoo is now part of the Verizon Media Group, for short, just VMG. There's a whole bunch of companies that's amalgamated under this. So Yahoo, AOL, I can't remember all of them, but there's a whole bunch of them that's part of VMG right now. But anyway, these are the kind of messages that you're going to get from them. 554, message not allowed. PH01, email not accepted for policy reasons. There's a whole bunch of different codes from Yahoo. This specific one, PH01, is most probably something in the content that's triggering one of their alerts on their side that's blocking the message. But there's a whole bunch of different codes, and way too many to get into detail on this presentation. But again, you see that you've got an issue at Yahoo and that you're being blocked at Yahoo. Right, Microsoft, here's one from them. So unfortunately, messages from IP address weren't sent. Please contact your internet service provider. Since part of the network is in our block list and it gives you a code, you can also refer your provider to and a URL that you can go and check. Again, very straightforward, right? Your IP has got a bad reputation at Microsoft. And I just got to warn everybody that when you get these kind of blogs at the mailbox providers, this isn't something that happens suddenly, right? You don't go to the inbox today and tomorrow you are hard bouncing like this. This happens over a period of time, right? So you will get soft bound messages that starts with a 4 dot something code to warn you that things are not well, right? That you're something in your content, something in your list acquisition practices, there's bad addresses, there's bad data, and or there's bad messages coming from your address. So you need to pay attention. And this I have to say as well, if you're using one of the ESPs I mentioned before, Aweber, GetResponse, MailChimp, any of these guys, they've got teams that monitor these things all of the time, right? So they've got tools that they've built that looks for trends connected to specific users. So they take care of this stuff for you most of the time, and most of the time it's not something that you have to worry about because the ESP team is already handling this for you. But you also got to understand from an ESP perspective, if this gets really bad from a specific user, their only recourse is to cancel that customer's account, right? Shut them down. So you have to be aware of these kind of things. You have to be aware of your list acquisition practices. You have to be aware of the type of messages that you're sending out. That's not going to get you as a customer of an ESP into trouble in the first place, because the ESP's responsibility is good deliverability for all of their customers. They're not going to allow a couple of bad apples to spoil everything for everybody, right? Anyway, moving along, we're digging a bit deep on this one right now. That's really it. I'm sorry. I thought there was another slide after this one. I hope that gives you some idea of blacklists and their function in the whole email ecosystem, and how it all fits together, and how it's important for you as a sender of the messages to be a good email citizen, right? And that means good list acquisition, right? Don't buy lists, don't scrape lists, nothing like that. Or opt-in, right? Opt-in pages, and get your customers to actually give you permission to send them marketing messages, and then send them what they actually signed up for in the first place, right? You don't want to send them nonsense that's completely irrelevant to what they originally signed up for, because that's when people start marking messages as spam, and that's when things start going bad, right? So just play by the rules, just do the right thing. It's as simple as that. As always, any questions, pop them into the comments. If it's on the live, I'm going to see them now. I'm going to answer them now. If it's on the replay, I'm still going to see them. I'm still going to be notified if there are any messages. I'll respond to those comments. Or, as always, send an email to emm@inboxjam.com, and I'll get back to you on, I'll respond to your question as quickly as I can. I may even answer your question on the next live presentation. So, next episode, episode 8, next week Thursday at exactly the same time. This is going to be a fun one. It's going to be a short one, but it's a fun one. So, is cold outreach email considered spam? A lot of SaaS companies, even a lot of non-SaaS companies, e-commerce companies, a lot of these companies do cold outreach. I've had customers come to me that had issues with deliverability. They're doing cold outreach and they wanted me to help them. So I'm going to give you, next week, I'm going to give you my perspective on cold outreach. Give you a quick explanation on how it works, what people do, and then give you my perspective on whether I think it is spam or not. So until next week, Thursday, thank you very much for your time, and I will see you then. Thank you. Bye-bye.